The film starts with the clip of day one in which Lee Abbott travels into town to get some groceries when he notices news broadcast about an explosion somewhere nearby. In the meanwhile, everyone witnesses what appears to be a comet falling from the sky. Everyone begins to run, with Regan accompanying Lee and Evelyn taking the boys. The monsters attack the town as Lee approaches an officer to find out what is going on. Lee snatches Regan and hides inside a pub, while Evelyn speeds through town. When a woman's phone rings, the bar is attacked, but Lee and Regan escape and run back to Evelyn and the boys just as the monster chases them down and kills the cop. Following the events of A Quiet Place 1, the Abbott family leaves their home barefoot. By this point, day 472 to 473, Evelyn has given birth to a baby boy. Lee has been killed while protecting Marcus and Regan from an alien. The house is on fire and flooding, and Evelyn recently killed several aliens using Regan's cochlea implant. Feedback noise exacerbated by a speaker, which deteriorates the aliens. Bo died on day 89 after stealing a space rocket toy from a store at the start of A Quiet Place 1. The sound of the toy drew an alien who swiftly attacked. The Quiet Place 2 starts with day 474. Evelyn urges Marcus and Regan to stay there just before leaving the farm, as she silently returns to the flooded cellar and swims in search of an oxygen tank. Meanwhile, Regan informs Marcus that she is returning to the house and leaves him with the baby. Regan goes to get the amplifier and microphone. She cuts a cord from the amplifier with her clipper. Regan and Evelyn return separately, and the family walks along Lee's sandy path until they reach the farthest point, at which time they silently step onto the dried leaves and resume their journey. Velen and Regan are carrying the baby in a trunk that has been soundproofed with blankets, and the oxygen tank is feeding a baby respiratory mask so that the trunk lid can be closed. The family finds an opening in a wire fence. As Evelyn walks through, her bag becomes entangled and a little noise is created. She glances behind her, concerned about the noise, and unintentionally activates a tripwire, causing a bundle of bottles to collapse and jangle. "Run," Evelyn says to Marcus and Regan. Meanwhile, we shift viewpoint to a gun aim that has been trained on the family. An alien begins pursuing the family. Marcus is injured while running by a bear trap, which he manages discreetly until he notices his crippled foot and lets out a primal scream. Evelyn attempts to soothe him down as Regan utilizes the amp, microphone, and cochlear implant hearing aid to generate excruciating feedback for the alien. As the alien struggles against the noises, Evelyn shoots it in the head. The family enters a nearby dilapidated structure. A man pulls Evelyn, puts his palm over her mouth, and gestures, "Shh," while pointing to an extraterrestrial on the ceiling as they move around a corner. The man guides the family down to a soundproof vault. A towel draped over the tunnel's latch decreases noise and keeps the latch from locking the door from the inside. He sets a timer on a stopwatch and opens the door to let in some fresh air after a few minutes. He informs the family that they cannot stay because there is insufficient food and water. Evelyn thinks she recognizes the man and asks, "Emmett?" To which Emmett removes his scarf and baseball cap, revealing his face. He reaffirms that they are unable to stay. Evelyn inquires about Emmett's children, to which he responds that his sons died on day 1. Evelyn inquires about his wife, Lola. He explains that Lola died 11 weeks ago, that she became ill, and that they relocated to the soundproof basement of this dilapidated factory after the pain became unbearable and she began screaming. "I couldn't do enough," Emmett acknowledges. Evelyn wonders if Emmett saw Lee's fires each night and if he knew it was him, Lee? Emmett claims to have done so. Evelyn wonders why he didn't come for them, given that they were friends. In A Quiet Place 1, the Abbott family had not received any contact from anyone and hadn't encountered any radio transmissions despite extensive searching. Very few survivors remained on Earth. "You don't know, do you? They're not people worth saving," Emmett said of the people who departed. "You are nothing like him, Lee," says Regan to Emmett. Regan walks over to her brother, who is resting after having his foot cruelly dressed, in the vault to muffle his moans. Regan hands Marcus headphones and starts playing radio white noise, scrolling through the frequencies. Marcus sits straight upright when he hears music. Evelyn rushes over as Regan stops spinning the dial. Marcus calls out music. And Evelyn responds. She looks to Emmett, who says that sure, it's simply the song Across the Sea on repeat, and that's all it ever does. Regan demonstrates his deception by telling her mother, "Dad would have heard it, he would have told us." As a result, anyone, including the family, can use a radio to broadcast the high-pitched noise and defend themselves from the aliens, a big step towards a better way of life. Marcus is concerned and does not want Regan to leave. Regan insists that she must try since that is what her father would have done. After Marcus threatens to notify Mom, Evelyn, Regan is forced to go out on her own extremely early in the morning. She leaves a keep listening note on the radio. After realizing that Regan has gone missing, Evelyn begs Emmett to go after her and bring her back. When Evelyn says she wishes Lee was here to look him in the eyes and tell him Regan is exactly the type of person worth preserving, he eventually agrees. Meanwhile, Regan stumbles into a railroad station with a derailed train and jumps on board the first carriage, the only one still on the train track. There are several skeletons and dead bodies. She requires a first aid kit, which she finds in the driver's seat, but she is unable to open the door. She ultimately gets to the box and takes it, but the skeleton of the deceased driver falls on her, scaring her and causing her to scream. When an extraterrestrial appears, Regan is trapped, attempting to hold the hearing aid to the microphone in one hand while operating the shotgun in the other. Fortunately, Emmett approaches and shoots the beast. They take refuge in a nearby station office, fearing that the disturbance may draw additional aliens. Emmett explains that he has come to bring her home. Regan is upset and says, "What home?" Regan reveals her plan to Emmett, saying that there was nothing he could do before his wife died, but now there is. Emmett resolves to assist her in completing the task. Evelyn has to leave Marcus and the baby at Emmett's base to obtain the items they need: medicine for Marcus' foot and more oxygen tanks for the baby for when the baby is in the trunk. Marcus is terrified and does not want her to leave. Evelyn explains that his foot will worsen and that she cannot lose him as well. Marcus recognizes this and lets her go. She returns to the sand path and takes the same path she and her family used to arrive to the store, where Lee bought oranges on day 1. She approaches the bridge where Bo died, where there is a makeshift shrine. She sobs as she touches the images and sets her wedding ring on top of the crucifix. Marcus returns to base after putting the baby to bed and exploring the property. The camera pans to the baby's oxygen tank, which has a red gauge since it is running low. Marcus goes upstairs and discovers a room covered in drawings of Emmett's sons. He discovers a dead body half composed, likely Lola, lying in a bed behind some drapes separating a section of the room. This alarms him, and he knocks over a few objects, alerting a neighboring extraterrestrial to his location. He dashes back to the basement, snatches the baby, and places him in the vault. He then steps out to retrieve the stopwatch and radio, and as the alien approaches, he is able to enter the vault and close the door. Marcus is unaware that the towel is not over the latch and that the door has locked shut. By evening, Emmett and Regan have arrived at some docks and are looking for a boat to take them to the island. They come across a young girl at the end of the pontoon. Emmett approaches her, and she traps him in a noose. Several feral individuals appear and begin to search Regan for resources by tying netting with bottles about Emmett. They confiscate her hearing aid and bag of supplies before leading her away. Emmett signals dive to Regan before wriggling open the netting, generating a lot of noise, and grabbing the man who stole Regan's hearing aid. Aliens emerge and attack the docks, killing several feral people. Emmett is still holding the man, and an alien appears to attack as a result of the bottle's commotion. Emmett jumps into the water, and the alien kills the savage guy. When the alien hears Emmett swimming in the lake, it jumps after him, only to perish because it cannot swim. Emmett is still bound to the dock and struggling to free himself from the rope around his neck. Regan's hand stretches out to him as a little boat passes by. He boards and opens his mouth, revealing Regan's hearing aid. We observe their boat headed to the island after they untie the noose. In the lower right corner of the screen, an alien is stuck on top of a detachment from a ship. Marcus is having trouble breathing and notices from his watch that he needs to open the door. He fumbles with the door and eventually gives up, heartbroken. When he opens the baby's trunk, he finds it screaming. With a pained look, he begins to share the baby's oxygen until he falls asleep. Meanwhile, the alien pursues her. Evelyn, Marcus, and the infant take refuge within the bunker, with the alien waiting outside the door for them. Regan and Emmett reach the island, where they discover a colony of individuals who have isolated themselves on the island and are leading regular lives. When the government realized the creatures couldn't swim, it sent as many people as possible to the islands. One of the beasts, however, makes it to the island on another boat and kills several humans. They entice the creature away from the radio station, and it follows them inside. When the alien hears Regan and Emmett, it slashes Emmett with its claws. However, when it pursues Regan, she is able to shift the sound from the station from the song to the noise created by her hearing aid, weakening the creature and eventually killing it with a pole. Marcus, who picked up the transmission via radio, also utilizes the noise to weaken the creature before shooting it dead, enabling anyone to eradicate the creatures. And that's a wrap on this week's movie review. Thanks for watching. Remember to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode.